Welcome, folks, to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and this is the LinkedIn Live program for technical sales leaders and technical sales professionals. And folks, as I like to remind people, these are live conversations. These are not pre-recorded. Here it is, Thursday, February 26th. It's noon Eastern. And as I like to say, these conversations are by design, unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable. And today's guest is absolutely no stranger to the pre-sales community. If you have spent any time, if you've paid any attention to LinkedIn, whether it's attending Demo Fest, any of the PSC podcasts, etc., she is a very visible, if I can use the word, persona and person in our field. And it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome her to today's show. Her name is Diana Cappello. She is the founder of Templates for SEs, and we may have you share a little bit about what that's all about. She's currently between roles, so she brings a very interesting perspective. She's been an SE leader for many, many years and knows some of the challenges there. Now she's going through an interviewing process and hearing some of the questions that are being asked these days. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the pressures and challenges that SE leaders are facing now and what we need to do to elevate to meet the challenge. Diana, it's been a long time coming. I think we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
I'm fabulous. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I think we've talked about this at every meetup that we run into each other. So I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Indeed, indeed. By the way, you look fantastic. You don't look like a person who's feeling overly stressed. So I'm glad to hear that, and I'm reasonably confident that you may be making some exciting announcements on LinkedIn about a new role sooner than later. But I want to dive right in. What are some of the big challenges that you are seeing? Some of the challenges that you faced when you were still running a team, and some of the questions that you're hearing from the people who are doing the interviewing.
Yeah. So it's funny, a lot of the things that I was hearing and experiencing for my own team, I am seeing consistently in other teams as I'm interviewing now. So one of those is AI. Let's start there.
Of course.
It's on the tip of everyone's tongue. Everyone's launching a new AI product. Everyone's claiming to be AI native, but nobody has a clear definition of what that is. And they want their SEs to be AI native. So they expect you to know and to come to the table with ideas about how to use AI in the SE role within the company, how to sell AI, how to talk about it. I mean, I was in one interview and the lady's like, oh, just the fact that you said LLMs tells me you know AI.
Oh my goodness. That's scary.
Well, because we were talking about predictive AI versus LLMs versus like the agents. And she's like, oh, just stop there. Now I know you know. And I was like, oh, okay. So low bar. But still expected. So that's one of the things I'm doing with this time is experimenting and trying out new things. Like I wrote a post recently. I signed up for Banana Pro, which is Google's Gemini, and it generates images. So I took my resume and I loaded it in and I said, make me a map in the style of the Lord of the Rings, where each of these jobs is the location on the map. And it did. Yeah, it was a very good first draft. There's a few glitches in there, but it's a fun way to present myself now when I'm doing these about me's in my interview.
So basically you had to create a map of the jobs that you've had. And I love that. That's, I mean, we're only 30 seconds in and already there's a great takeaway. By the way, Diana, let me pause just for a moment. Cliff, I see you say it. Hello from Richmond, Virginia. Nice to see you, Cliff. By the way, folks, we do not see who's out there. So if you care to say hello, please do so. And of course, if you have any questions for Diana, please drop them in the chat. I will keep an eye on the chat and would love to hear from you. So you mentioned this term AI native. And I've heard this before too. And if I'm being fully honest with you, Diana, and everybody else out there, I think I pretend to know what it is that I think I'm talking about. have you spent, and the chances are, I'm not really sure I know what that means. Have you spent any time trying to at least come up with a definition? And if so, where have you landed with what it means to be AI native?
Yeah. So a couple things come to mind. I'm of the Salesforce admin background, and they use the term native to describe any application that was built using the force.com technology or platform. That was a native app. So that's where my brain goes immediately to think, was this app built purposefully with AI as the foundation? And the last company I was at, the way they were positioning themselves is, if you removed the AI from the application, could it still function? Would it serve its purpose? And if the answer is no, then it's an AI native application. If the answer is yes, then they just bolted AI on top of their existing solution.
Love that definition. I am literally going to write that down. That is from this point forward until somebody gives me a better definition. That is the definition that I'm using. By the way, Rich Polton is out there. He said hello, and somebody said something about the 6 Habits book. I don't know who it is. It just says LinkedIn user. So whoever that is, it's nice to see you, and thanks for sharing. And then Sam, anyone else gonna make the Lord of Rings application tonight? Love it. See, you've already dropped some knowledge. So you said you've taken a little bit of time to focus on AI. Where have you landed in terms of how SE leaders should be either coaching their people or guiding their people in using AI in the role?
Yeah. So I'm of a coaching mindset. As a leader, I think it's my responsibility to encourage people to keep developing in all areas, their skills, their technology prowess, their people skills. So AI is just an additional thing in the tool belt.
Okay.
But the way I like to do it is, one, consistency. So I used to always have a section in my team called Sharpen the Axe, where we would remind folks about refining a skill, or have somebody come on the team call and go, oh, look, here's how somebody's using AI today. Yeah. In my last role, the previous VP I had, Ethan Jones, he was fantastic at being like, check out what I did with AI this week, and putting it in our Slack. Like, it was continuous. So it was leading from the front, very motivating, like, oh man, okay, I need to go try something. Or yeah, I see that. So that's important for me as a leader, to model that behavior and to give space to encourage people to explore and share best practices, or at least what's working or not working. I love to do a QBR with the SE team, where they can reflect on the quarter and share things like that too.
Yeah.
But then from a job perspective, as the manager, I'm always looking at, how do I shorten that sales cycle? How do I reduce the work about work, the effort in between the demos for the SEs? And so I need to stay up on the technology that's available and figure out if it can be applied to take 4 hours of prep down to 2, or to create this document in seconds instead of hours. Like, I need to be on the lookout for those things. And then it needs to be on me to pitch that internally and try to get that from my team.
What kind of expectations are you seeing from the interviews that you're going on in terms of what you will bring, whether it's tools, expertise, et cetera, around AI?
Yep. The expectation is that you understand it, that you can talk about it in simple terms to the audience, and that you're using it at least in your day-to-day as a person at work, that you've had some experience with applied AI, either in your immediate role or in the company, that you can leverage. I don't hear a lot of people going, oh, tell me about the outcome of that project.
Okay.
Realizing we're still in this experimentation phase, but they want you to have already started that. They don't want to pull you out of your comfort zone. They want somebody who's already out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. Are there any tool, and this is not intended to be a commercial for any platform or any vendor. That being said, I am curious, are there any tools in particular, other than the Chat GPT and the Gemini and the Copilot that most of us are using? Are there any tools in particular that you have discovered that have been particularly beneficial for you as a manager?
Yeah. So full transparency, I'm on their customer board because I love them so much. It's Alto, OLTO.
Yes.
They use AI to generate a data set for your demo. So I was selling HR software, and all of the data in our demo was real people's names, resumes, phone numbers, emails, PII. And it was fantastic. So it was 100,000 records, and I could match any job and it would get a decent pool of candidates. Issue is I can't show that to anybody. So Alto would come in, look at the records I had, and then how do I put it in Instagram terms, put a filter on it. So sepia, instead of the real data I had, it'd make it all federal jobs, or it'd make it all food and beverage or healthcare or financial. So it was applicable to the industry and it was anonymized, which was two birds, one stone. It cut down significantly on prep time, especially when we had a really tailored custom demo. And it could even change the language, which we could do in our application, but it wouldn't change everything. So it was really helpful if we needed to show everything in Japanese. Just pick a skin and it would load that up.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And you know, it's funny. In the 6 habits that I wrote about, obviously habit number 3 is to prepare. And so I talk a lot about, you need to spend time, but tools like Alto are really changing the game. And we don't need to, we shouldn't be spending so much time preparing or modifying content, which gives us more time to develop the more important side, which is the narratives, the story, right? The flow, et cetera. So, but by the way, Sam mentioned AI as a tool to reduce heavy lifting of sales is really top of mind. Well said, Sam. Well said. This leads to another thing that you mentioned to me a week or two ago when we chatted. You said that, you know, Chris, it really goes hand in hand with the notion that SE leaders are expected to carry or manage larger teams, and there's an increase in headcount. So are you seeing this across the board, and what does that do to the role?
Yep. So in my own most recent role, there we go. I'm back.
Are you there? I think
there we go. It's not a demo if there's not a gremlin.
I mean, I think we lost each other for a second. All right, folks, we're back. If you thought we disappeared, we're back.
What I was saying is, if I lost the head count, that was my new team. There was no backfill plan, as much as I tried. But then that is a good thing, because you don't want to have a bloated organization and then have to do a layoff. So I think that was a responsible reaction to what's going on in the tech industry right now. So while it is difficult for an individual or a manager to say, gosh, there's so much more work per person right now, it's better than the alternative. So just hang in there if you're feeling stressed.
How much of it do you think is because of AI? Is it directly related to AI, or is it just look, budgets are getting tighter and we just are being expected to do more?
I think it's a little bit of the AI, and that's hope from the leaders that, hey, hopefully AI will come fill these gaps for us. But I also think it's a shift in the financial mindset, especially because I've only ever worked at startups. Profitability wasn't important for a long time. And so getting out of the red into the black, being cash positive, It's on the tip of everyone's tongues right now. All the investors, all the C-suite, everybody's talking about it. And so this is one way to reduce your cost per acquisition, is to reduce your employee count. That's usually your largest part of the expense of running a business. And so if the employees are leaving on their own, then you're not the bad guy. So let's just let that happen and see how far we can go till it breaks and try to fill in the cracks with the AI.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, Cliff says, and you're back. So it's good to know that we're back streaming again. I was hoping we would be. What does this change about your expectation or an SE leader's expectation that he or she should and or could or might have on their people? Is it reasonable for us to expect more from our SEs?
So 2 parts to that question. What I'm seeing in interviews is most of the teams I'm talking to, as a manager, you will be joining a team that's already maxed out. You'll be taking a team of 12 that they're going to split in half, or they're not going to hire a manager until they hit 8 or more, or 10 or more people on a team. There are far fewer companies right now that are saying, hey, let's take these 2 SEs, give them a manager, and let that manager build their ideal team. That's not happening very often. There's one in my pipeline like that right now, but everyone else, no. So I think the amount of direct reports is increasing, and that's not just on SEs, that's on sales too. 8 to 10, I think, is the new normal, not 4 to 6. And then with that, a manager is not going to have enough time to give individual attention to everyone like I would like or we're used to. This is where AI can come in again. There's a company, Udily. I've been using them to practice my interviews, but they are also used to help coach employees and practice hard conversations or role plays. That's the kind of thing I think we're going to have to leverage as managers to support our employees in getting better in their skills, because we can't be there with them as much as we want. But then on the employee side, to resist that burnout, we are going to have to get better at setting our own boundaries. We're going to have to ruthlessly prioritize. And I think that is with the manager and the company and the sales team too. What is it that you really need only an SE to do? That CSMs can do these other things, sales can do these other things. So let's, instead of before, what we were doing is, oh, let me do some of that CSM work. Let me do some of that sales work. Let me help marketing. Let me be this jack of all trades. I think we're going the opposite direction now. I think it's like, what is the 1 to 2 most valuable things that only an SE can do? How do we spend the majority of their time focused on those things? And what else can we outsource to the other teams? Train the CSMs up how to demo, train the sales team how to demo, save just the SEs for the POCs or the custom demos or what have you. I think that's the direction we're going to be going. And it's also up to the manager to point people in that right direction, to reset expectations that maybe folks are used to having an SE on every call, and that's not acceptable anymore. Yeah. And it's up to them to find a faster way to get the thing done so that you're not packing more hours on some of the schedule. You're removing hours so that they can support that workload.
It's interesting. What I hear you saying resonates so much. And I do believe it begins with the SE leader. The SE leader is the one that it's interesting. For years, we've talked about building bridges, right? Building the bridge with sales, building the bridge with product, building the bridge with marketing. And I think that's still an important role of the SE leader. What I hear you saying now too, is that we also have to build the perimeter.
We need a moat.
Right. Exactly. We have to build the guardrails so that our team is staying focused on the most valuable activities. And I mean, I've said this for years. I've said to SEs for years, I believe we are all responsible for maximizing the use of our time. That is 100% on us. And if we're fully honest, there are times that we may drift into some things that are fun, like building out some scenario or building out some demo or something of that nature. But if it's not directly revenue generating related, and it's and squarely within our role, that's where we need to have those boundaries, as you said. I love that a great deal. What, as you've gone through this process, and I know you found yourself, as I understand it, somewhat unexpectedly in a position where now you're looking for a new role. And for what it's worth, we've all been there. So at least if you haven't, you will be, right? I've been there, you've been there, and it's just being very frank. It is proof positive that good people and in fact, excellent people just end up on the wrong side of the equation, right? That's
right.
My question for you is, was there anything in particular that was really a learning moment for you, sort of in that experience, either as you reflected on what led up to it, or as you've now stepped into the world looking for your next role? Have there been any significant learnings in that process?
I think the last 6 months has exposed a skill set that I need to develop that could have maybe altered the outcome if I was better at managing up. And so I had management changes. I had 3 different CROs in 3 years. I had 2 different SCVPs in the 3 years I was there. And then at the end, I had nobody above me. I was the director reporting to the CRO. And so having to be able to educate people that have never been an SC, never led an SC, about the value of an SC and steer the course of the conversation, that would have supported my team better and maybe had a different outcome. I don't know that it would have been different, but yeah, it's a skill that I want to develop more now.
And some things are just out of our control. By the way, it looks like Amber Fallon is with us. Amber, nice to see you. There's another very recognizable name in our profession. So first of all, this idea of managing up, again, being very transparent, that resonates with me very, very well, because that was never something I was particularly good at as well. Some people might call it politics or playing politics. As you reflected on things, is there a tangible example of what that actually means to you in terms of managing up? Like, is there a specific thing in hindsight that maybe you wish you had done or you would do differently moving forward?
I would have advocated for myself a little earlier to say, as I got this new CRO, he has 10 plus direct reports. I'm only getting 30 minutes with him every 2 weeks. To be able to say, what I need is more of your time so I can brainstorm. Like, this is how I work. Like, I see your list of priorities and everything is urgent. Can we sit down and prioritize the urgent things in order so that I know where to start? Or like, can we agree on what could be delayed to make room for the more important things? Like, that wasn't the type of conversation that I was having towards the end. It was more like, okay, let me just throw 10 more hours on my day. Let me see if I can get these. I was certifying all the AEs how to demo. Let me see if I get a few more SCs to help me watch the certifications and score manually, right? Rather than saying, this isn't scaling, we need a different way to certify AEs. Yeah.
Diana, let me just push our pause button just for a quick moment, folks. If you've just joined us or just in the past minute or a few minutes, I'm speaking with Diana Cappello. She is a very well-known and recognized face and name in the pre-sales community. She is recently the founder of, quote, Templates for SEs. We're having a candid conversation about what she's experiencing out in the field now that she's actually between roles and some of the challenges that are facing SE leaders in the midst of this AI world and just the increasing expectations on SEs, on SE leaders, etc. If you do have any comments or if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And Amber mentioned self-advocacy is so important, but so challenging. I couldn't agree more, Amber. That's really well said. And I was thinking that too, as you said, I wish I'd advocated. And I think a lot of sales engineer leaders and SEs for that matter, I think that sort of happens naturally. Why? We tend to be problem solvers. We tend to be people pleasers. We don't necessarily want to put all the attention on ourselves, and we do tend to be the opposite of a self-promoter, right? We're almost like the anti-self-promoter. But you're right. We need to remember that if we're not advocating, and you said it, I'm just going to work 10 more hours a week and let my work speak for itself.
Yes.
Unfortunately, if we're not sort of waving our own flag, our work may not be noticed to the extent that we think. And it sounds like that was your experience.
Yeah. And I know that marketing struggled with this, because when I started out my career, I was in marketing. And that was around the time that Marketo and Eloqua and all those were coming out. And I saw this shift of this defensive posture in marketing to an offensive posture to say, here's the value that I am contributing. Here's how I will measure and report my success to the organization. And sales can take it. Now they're working on collaborating more. But that's what we as an organization need to do better is, I don't know if we can ever agree on a standard set of KPIs or metrics, but as a leader, if you can get your CRO to agree on a certain set of early indicators and lagging indicators that matter, you can communicate effectively through those charts without even having a meeting. You say, hey, look, this is going up or down. That's a problem. Here's my suggestion for how we're going to fix it. And it removes the personal, my need, I want out of the equation.
Yeah. But Cliff said, characteristics of managing out: never let your manager be surprised, and make their job easier. And Amber said, we're quiet about our wins because we're used to promoting others. It's so true. So sort of having this perspective now, Diana, and I know you'll be landing on your feet somewhere here soon. What are you going to do, or is there anything you're going to do different in terms of either advocating for yourself or advocating for your team? Are you going to specifically or intentionally look for opportunities to maybe capture some sort of KPIs that are otherwise not being captured and elevate them to leadership?
Yeah. So no matter where I land, the number one first thing I'm going to do is connect with my people. That does not change. That is exactly the most important thing. I think people first. The thing that what I want to discuss with them as soon as I can and connecting with them is what is important. How do we measure that? What does good look like? Let's all get on the same page about that. And let's set up a regular cadence for reporting whether or not we're holding that bar. Then I'll figure out, okay, what's the process that we're doing? How do we optimize it? Where are the problems? What fires can I put out? But I have seen too many times the KPI is just such a amorphous, challenging problem that it's seen as important and not urgent, and it gets pushed. I am definitely changing that in my book. That is an urgent thing, and it's important, and it can change. So what? You have a shitty first pancake. Get a KPI out there that matters. If you find out it doesn't, change it.
Yeah. Love that attitude. There's another thing that I've been speaking with SE leaders about recently that I'm curious to put on your radar or put on the table here. In fact, just yesterday I was speaking with an SE, and we were having a similar conversation. We were talking about AI and how they're using AI and sort of how that is morphing the role. And he even pulled up, and I won't say the platform, but he pulled up a platform that they're specifically using. And he's like, look, Chris, literally I can just type in, like, here's the account, here's a few conversations we've had, build me a storyboard for XYZ demo, and right. And he said, and so I asked him, I said, well, if they're leveraging AI so much and that's helping them tell better stories, do better, engage in better discovery, what are you doing from a coaching perspective? His answer was interesting. He said, Chris, I feel like I spend more time doing deal management coaching. And how do we not just positioning the solution, not just engaging in discovery, but how do we help manage the deal so we don't have drift and we don't lose sight of the ultimate goal, which, so is this something you're spending time, or have you seen this in your role as well?
I got a master class in that at Clary. They put the sales and sales engineering over there. We were expected to be superior to anyone we are selling to at the sales game, right?
Wow.
You got to outsell that other CRO.
Right. I mean, you're selling to sales.
Selling sales. Oh, it's so fun. It's sport. I love it. And the SEs were no different. Like, if an AE was sick, the SE should be able to give their pitch, do that call, what have you. Maybe not negotiate, but like the whole game of how do we avoid a POC because we know that's going to delay the deal, or how do we box it in because we know or hey, one of the things we tackled early on was InfoSec. We didn't have AI councils back then, but I would apply this to AI councils too. How do you have a proactive approach to those? A send ahead package. Hey, these are the most commonly asked questions by AI councils, and here are frequent answers. Here's why our contract is written the way it is, because we are an AI platform, not just SaaS. Or here's why our pricing is consumption-based, and that's in your favor. Like, the SE has that angle and can produce a lot of that documentation, as well as a visual demo to go with it. And that's the whole package. And if you could get that into that secondary buyer's hand sooner rather than later, you can avoid like a month or 3 months of back and forth with that secondary buyer.
Yeah. So in this regard, do you think we're becoming more like account executives, or do you think we're going to, and do you think we're going to continue to become more like account executives, or are the roles sort of merging a little bit, or maybe getting a little bit sort of integrated or confused?
Yeah, I'll jokingly say it depends.
I love that. That's where's my chip. You know, everybody gets a chip when they make me laugh. That's worthy of a chip.
If it's a simpler tool like an AI agent or low code, no code, you're selling to non-techies, absolutely, we're drifting more towards the AE role. And I think AEs are expected to behave more like SEs. That's what I've seen everywhere is, oh, we're certifying, or we already have AEs doing first demos, sometimes even custom demos. The AEs do those.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
So I think they're blending over there. On the more technical side, where I'm talking about integrations, I don't even know because I'm not that technical, but there's a lot more opportunity on that
high end, like the data management, cybersecurity,
hardware.
Right.
Yeah. I think what's happening there is this new role, forward deployed engineer. I'm betting we're going to go that direction. And I was talking to a company about a forward deployed engineer role for myself. And the reason I backed out was because I'm not that technical. I don't code. I don't enjoy coding. I know JSON. I know how to make Salesforce work. I get it. But if that's more than 10% of my job, I'm going to be miserable. Yep. And they said, no, you just need to come with your great ideas. We'll code it for you. And I'm like, great. So I'm going to make my team do my job. I can't. I won't do that.
Yeah.
So that's not for me. But I think there might be a company out there where that is the right fit for someone like me who's more on the sales side. And then the third thing that's happening is we're becoming more like CSMs. So I have had the opportunity to create a team from scratch that's solely upsold to existing customers.
Interesting.
And that's been at 2 companies now where I've been hired to do that. And I really enjoy it because you can get so much more specific with them. You have so much more access to their data and their use cases. But I think I've seen a lot of SCs become very successful CSMs. I've not seen too many come the other way, a few. I don't think they like the sales pressure, to be honest. It's not that they aren't good at it. I just don't think there's interest. But what I have been seeing is solutions becoming one team. That is another trend that's happening, is the VP will run both the CSMs and the pre-sales. And at Clary, pre-sales grew out of CSM. They were CSMs first, and then they said, hey, maybe we'll take one of you out of CSM role and you can just work on the new business.
Interesting. there's a term that I've been using for a while now, simply called success engineers, because there's so much talk about it. We pre-sales or solution engineers or sales engineers, but I think success engineer is a good term, because we are responsible for engineering success for our customers, and we are responsible for engineering success for the company, right? Which is the revenue generating side of the role. So I agree with you. I think if we all thought of ourselves as success engineers, that's sort of, that I think that covers the gamut. So, by the way, Cliff mentioned deal management coaching can be a tough sell for SEs and to sales leadership, but I do think it's one of the more important leadership activities.
I have a book back there. I'm trying to, I'll find the title later, but it's by the Challenger sale guy. He wrote another book in 2021 because he had access to all these recordings now that everyone was selling remotely. And they analyzed all these recordings, and they found certain habits that top sellers consistently did. And most of them applied to SEs too.
Interesting.
So I'll post about it and I'll tag you.
Yeah, post about it after the fact, because now I'm curious. And by the way, I just have to say, it is not lost on me that your books are organized by color. There's something very insightful and telling there, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I'm certain one of the things is you are far more organized than I am. So that is not lost on me. Speaking of books, since we're talking about deal management, and I have zero skin in the game, but I will make a plug for Dimitri Lee's book, The Pre-Sales Navigation System. He doesn't call it this, but I will suggest that this is a lot around deal management for SEs and SE leaders. So I'll just make that shout out for Dimitri. As I said, I've got no skin in the game. I do think it's a good book. Diana, I'm going to push pause just one more time in case we've had anybody join us in the past couple minutes. Folks, I'm speaking with Diana Cappello. She is the founder of, quote, Templates for SEs. She is currently between roles. She's currently looking for a book on her well-organized bookshelf. So we'll give her a moment to glance. If you do have any questions, we'll probably be here for another 15 or 20 minutes. If you do have any questions, feel free to fire away. Or if you just want to say hello to Diana or myself, please feel free to drop it in the comments. We're talking about some of the challenges facing SE leaders. AI, of course, is a big part of it. We're expected. And this is something we've been talking about for a while, but it's becoming more prevalent. We're expected to do more with less. Teams are getting bigger. If you lose headcount, you don't know, or somebody leaves, you don't necessarily get that. That's not necessarily a spot that you can fill. Diana, you mentioned something a few minutes ago that I would love to just double click on for a moment. And it was in response to when I said, as you think about your new team that you'll be inheriting sooner than later, what is your approach, and how? And the first thing you said is people, and get to know my people and connect with my people. If I were to ask you, what are your top 3 leadership philosophies, or your top 3 leadership guideposts, how might you respond to that?
Yeah. So people first. It's all about people. That was a mistake I made early in my career as a manager. I thought it was about running the deal cycle, closing the deals. How do I make my people as effective as possible? But I was missing the people part of it. So learn that one. And then the second part of it is always be working on beating yourself. Just get 1% better than you were yesterday.
Love that.
There was a good analogy. I think it was in a different demo training class, so I won't drop names, but somebody shared the analogy with me and I liked it. And it was that the difference in the Olympics between gold and silver is a fraction of a second.
Without a doubt.
So if you could just get a fraction of a second better, you can beat the competition. So always be developing, a constant learner. I mean, that's why I have all the books. My digital book list is a lot bigger. And then no assholes. There's a book, The No Asshole Rule, back there. I can't take it. Like we're we're humans. We're here. We're trying our best. Assume best intent. Treat people the
Love
way
that
they
one.
deserve to be treated. And if somebody's giving you a hard time or you're having a bad day, just take a break.
Yeah. I really like that last one. It's interesting. I mentioned to you, I actually did a workshop for a client earlier this morning. And one of the things that I had them do is write down something that one of their sales counterparts has done recently that frustrated them in some way. Right. And usually for SEs, it doesn't take too long to think of something that one of their account executives has done that frustrated. And by the way, if I ask the account executives, I'm sure they could quickly come up with a list themselves. Right. And then I asked them, now that you've thought about that thing that they did that bothered you in some way, now write down, how did you interpret it? What was the conclusion you arrived at? And here's an example of what I often hear. They scheduled me, they put a meeting on my calendar for a demo without asking if I was available, without sending me any information. I have no context. I'm just supposed to, okay, well, how do you interpret that? They just don't care about my time and they don't want to follow the process. The final question is, what's that?
They're busy or they're excited. They got a live one. Maybe they're going to call you tomorrow and they're just finishing the notes.
Bingo. So, and this is the third question. Is it possible you're not giving them the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah.
Is it possible there's another explanation other than they just don't care about they don't care about you. They don't care about your calendar. They don't respect your time. Right now, that might be true, but it might not be true. And so that's what you're saying. I'm interested to go back and double click on something you said, because I think it's a lesson for other people to learn as well, which is you said that one of the mistakes that you made early in your career as an SE leader was that you were and these are my words, not yours, but you were just too focused on hitting the number, driving deals, getting things done. What was the result of that focus? What was the manifestation of the outcome of that mistake, as you phrased it?
Oh my gosh. So I'll tell a story with this one. I remember sitting in a one-on-one with, all of my SEs were fantastic. They were neck and neck top performers. It was great. And one of them, Israel was his name, and we're still in touch. He goes, Diana, I want to have a relationship like Donna and Quinn have. Like, she knows his girlfriend's name. And I was like, I don't want to know your girlfriend's name. I've had friends at work, we got in a fight and it ruined my whole work experience. Like, I'm not trying to make friends at work, was my mindset. Like, I'm trying to just deliver. But that moment stuck with me. And I was like, why don't I want to know his girlfriend's name? I care about him. Like, we jive at work. We're getting along. We're like, he's a whole person. He wants that care from me. And like, it was an entire half or more of my leadership that I hadn't been nurturing or exposing anyone to. So yeah, that one comment completely changed my outlook on leadership. And I started reading books on how to connect with people, like how to talk to people, how to get people open up, open-end questions, coaching, like really coaching, not coming in and being like, you did these 10 things right, you did these 10 things wrong. But how to say, what were you thinking that choice was going to do? Why did you put things in that order? What were you going for here? What's another way you could get that result? Like, that's how my coaching changed. And then obviously at the people level, I had a VP, Gordon. He started every conversation with, how was your weekend? How's the family? I was so annoyed by that. I want to get to the thing. But I love Gordon. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be Gordon. And every conversation, I'm like, how was your weekend? Like, at first it was so hard, and then it was so natural. And now I couldn't not do it. And I see other new managers going through this too. And another woman brought up, she's like, I don't want to know how their weekend was. I was like, shut that down. You need to be a full person for them, and they want to be a full person for you. Like, that people want to work for people.
That was a mic drop moment right there. That was a great story that you just shared, and I appreciate that a great deal. I'm reminded, as you were sharing your story, are you familiar with the movie Jerry Maguire? Have you ever seen Jerry Maguire?
Yeah.
And there's a scene right at the end where, they had been through a lot, and his one big client lands the huge deal, and they embrace each other like friends. And by then they are friends. And then I think it was Troy Aikman. I don't know why I remember this scene, but Troy Aikman turned and said, well, why don't we hug like that? And the guy was like, okay, we can hug. Right. But it was completely and totally artificial. But this is exactly what you're talking about.
No,
and
it's
are
true. Like my family, a lot of them are on the spectrum. So hugging was foreign. Like saying goodbye was foreign to me. I had to teach myself these social norms and how to connect with people more than just what's the value I give you or what's the value you give me.
Yeah.
So it's a learned skill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look, we called this a candid conversation with Diana Cappello, and I can't think of a more candid conversation than this. And I appreciate you sharing this a great deal. You're 100% right. People want to know, particularly their managers, they want to know that you care. You value me as a person first. And when I feel valued as a person, there's almost nothing I won't do, or at least try to do, for you as my leader, because now I know you care about me. I know you've got my back, and we're going to do this together. And that's really what leadership is all about. It's driving desire. And I just believe that the people, when people feel as though their leaders really care about them and have their best interest in mind, they will take any hill for that leader. And that's awesome. That is a great reflection. Believe it or not, Diana, we've been at this for about 50 minutes. These conversations always go way faster than I expect. I do want to ask you about your templates for SEs, but before we get there, anything just from a broad perspective? We've been talking about some of the challenges that SEs are facing, some of the things that you've been seeing out just in the market, particularly in this stage that you're in. Anything else that you wanted to share or we're hoping to mention before we talk a little bit about the templates for SEs?
Yeah, I do want to share, to answer Clifford's question, like what can you do to stand out? I mean, I have been very intentional in building a brand on LinkedIn, and it's so much easier now with AI. I just time block a couple hours to write a dozen posts and schedule send. Like, if you can time block that way, it works really well. Going to networking things, genuinely connecting with people, not just, doing the handshake and the card. But I see the same 10 people at every networking event I go to now. And it's really fun. And I'll like check in on them. I'm like, how's your job? We've changed jobs. I'm like, oh, this one didn't work for me. Do you want it? Like, they're like my little team. They're my team outside of my team. That's connections is really the only way I've ever gotten any job except one. And I hated that one. So, but I've also done something I've never done before. I hired a coach. So I did hire Eugene from Better Career.
Yeah.
Saved my skin the other day. Bless him.
Awesome.
They're amazing.
Yeah. Eugene and Maddie are great. Yeah. So we'll make an unashamed plug for Better Career. If you're looking, and if you're not working with a coach, look up Yuji Higashi and Better Career. They are not only do they provide a great service, they are just good, solid people. So highly recommended from this show, if I can use that term.
And they got me a Udemy license as part of this, and a Notion license as part of this. And so I'm experimenting with these other products. So Udemy I use to practice my interviews, which is fantastic. And I believe it's free to everyone who just wants an individual license and you want to practice interviews. I strongly recommend that, because I was selling the same technology to corporations that were going to use it to interview you. So be prepared to interview with an agent. The AI isn't just screening or matching. They're scoring you. They're analyzing your emotions, your reactions, your thought time. They're validating that you know what you say you know through video tests. So get comfortable with an agent.
And that's Udemy that does that?
Udemy doesn't do all those things, but Udemy lets you practice your demo or your interview. So I could say, hey, I'm interviewing with the recruiter, or I'm interviewing with the hiring manager or the CRO, and you can role play your interview. But the
Yeah.
product I was selling before, they were designed
Gotcha.
validate that you knew what you
Got
said
it.
you knew. Or they would, instead of a recruiter doing a screen, the agent would do the screen and tell the recruiter, here's your top 10.
Amazing.
Now, recruiter, you don't have to look at 300 applicants. You're just going to look at 10. So that's really hard to stand out. You have to stand out to the agent.
Yeah, that's tough. That is really tough. It is a different world. And the thought that comes to mind for me is the old saying, who moved my cheese? Here's your reality, folks. It's a great book. And here's the truth. The cheese has moved. And if you're still here, if you're still standing here wondering if the cheese is coming back, it's not coming back. The world is changing literally under our feet. We need to change with it. So that's really well said. Okay, we have just a few minutes. As I like to say, the landing gear is out, the runway is in sight. We're going to land this plane on time. You know, put the tray tables up and buckle your seatbelts. Let's talk for a minute about the templates for SEs. What is this all about?
That was a brainstorm on a Mother's Day weekend a couple years ago. And I said, you know what? I was on a podcast like this or something for Pre-Sales Collective, and somebody goes, do you have a template for that? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think I could share mine. And then I realized I've gotten that question on almost every public speaking thing I've done. So I said, why don't I just write this down? I mean, I'll make a library of templates for myself that I can rinse and reuse anywhere I go. And then I can monetize it. Because my husband was taking a test for his job, and there was somebody who made a website to help you study, and it was $50. And I was like, you know what? That's it. That's like, nothing on my site is more than $100. I'm not trying to get rich. I'm just trying to help us all like take that first step. That's the hardest step. Start with my template. Here's how I would fill it out. It's things like how to run a discovery call, how to have a one-on-one with your AE, a debrief, or as a manager, how to set up a skills matrix. I even gave it to my friend. She works in a totally different industry. She said, my boss is like reorganizing our titles and he wants me to have a skills matrix. And I'm like, here, take it, go run.
Yeah.
So if you would just want a first step, a shortcut, I might have something on there for you. It's on Etsy. Templates, the number 4 SCs, Solutions Consultants.
Okay. So after we wrap up, can I invite you to put a link in the comments to that as well?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Because I want to make sure people can get that and find that, because it sounds incredibly helpful. Diana, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you join me on this show today. It's been it was a long time coming. You were such a wealth of information and knowledge. You've got an incredible experience, and you're just a delight to speak with. So thank you so much for being here. Any final thoughts from you before we wrap up?
Well, just thank you. You're so sweet. I really appreciate it. And I always love our conversations, and just the fact that we get to share it with anyone that's on right now, it just amplifies all of that goodwill out in the world. And that's what it's all about.
Indeed. Hang around backstage just for a minute so we can say a proper goodbye. Is it safe to say that you'd be more than happy for anybody listening to this live or the recording to connect on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Please connect. Give me a comment so I know the context, because we never know when we're going to run into each other again. And I use that to be like, when did I meet you? That would be a big help. And I am swamped because I have final interview tomorrow for somebody. So I'll get back to you next week.
Awesome. Well, good luck with the final interviews. For those of you who hung around till now, thank you so much for being here. If you caught the recording, thank you so much as well. If you care to be alerted to these, you can follow hashtag Tech Sales Advice on LinkedIn. You can also go to techsalesmastery.com to learn a little bit more about the work that I do. I will be back next week. Actually have another exciting guest. It's a gentleman who he's a retired veteran from the Army, I believe, and he works for Microsoft now as an SE. He literally, like in the past 6 months, he got the book, devoured the book. Then he went through our online training program, and like he's become an overnight success within his organization. So we're going to be talking about his rise to stardom as an SE. So that's next week's show. Diana, thank you. Hang around to everybody else, have a good week. I hope to see you next week. Bye all.